Hey guys, how are you today? My name's Evan. This is Whiskey and Wolves with Evan and Chris. Take this for what it is, guys. We are pro trainers, pro dog trainers right here, coming to you live for all the right reasons. We are here to debunk the bunk in our industry, talk about all the things that we want to make sure that you know how not to do and how to do in modern dog training. My name again is Evan Stewart. I'm the master trainer over at KPro Canine Dog Training. We're a small regional company. And this is my good friend, Chris Lamy. He's the master trainer over at Canine Coaching for Chris. Chris, what are we drinking today, man?
We have a special treat today for our first one, actually. This is 73 Distillery. 73 Distillery is actually made in New Orleans. It's a Louisiana, New Orleans company. The reason for the name of 73 Distillery is actually there's 73 neighborhoods in New Orleans. We learned this last week at a tasting.
So good.
And what we have here, actually, they've got obviously 73 different neighborhoods, 73 different drinks. We have the Irish Channel whiskey here, one of my favorites. It's divine.
It's smooth,
It's
man.
divine. We went to a whiskey tasting last week. We got to hang out and talk with their master distiller, which I can always forget his name, but really fantastic guy, really knowledgeable, and it shows in their product.
Yeah.
I'm glad we have this. It's funny that you had one, I had one.
Yeah, man, we picked one up last night because I was like, we were talking about it and I was like, man, I gotta give that a shot, man.
It's delicious.
So
you hold on before you move one more. I want to say something really nice. You said something off cuff in your intro.
Yeah.
We're here for the right reasons.
Yeah.
I like that. I don't know if you thought about it. I don't know if you caught it. I like it.
Yeah, man.
We have a very unique relationship going on here with everything we have going on.
Sure. Technically, we're competitors.
We are.
But like, take it for what it is, guys. In dog training, and this is what we're going to be talking about today. Finding the right dog trainer for you is just as important as that you trained at all. Right. And so like your style is a little different than my style. The guy down the street's got a different style than we do. And everybody is going to engage the personality type that they like. Right.
Yep. And it's almost like finding a therapist almost. Right. Like you want to be comfortable with the individual. I mean, these are our people's children.
In a lot of ways, that's how they feel.
They absolutely do and should. Right. Dogs are a very important part of our lives.
They are.
And so you want to make sure that you're avoiding these pitfalls and avoiding these traps and avoiding somebody who's not going to give you the best product for your money. We're also not cheap.
No,
right?
Good dog training isn't cheap. And that's one of the things, we get a lot of bargain shopping, of course, right? Mm-hmm. And that's one of the things I tell people all the time is, guys, this isn't a thing that we do on the side. We're not 18-year-old kids. This is a full-time, real life vocation.
Well, and how many times have we already said to each other, like, I need a therapist for this job. Like it is
absolutely
in depth, the amount of emotional and mental and physical work that goes into it.
It is.
And I'm excited to talk about it.
Especially whenever you're helping people walk through some of the stormy stuff in their lives, right? Mm-hmm. And sometimes that just centers around the dog. Sometimes they call because the dog has symptoms of the storm.
Exactly.
And so helping folks isolate those things, man, that gets rough. But today we're talking about how to find the best dog trainer for you, right? So what does that look like? I mean, there's all kinds of fancy marketing out there. Some dog trainers have certifications, some don't. Some have, affiliations, some don't. And from my experience, man, and maybe you can tell me a little bit about this too, but whenever people call into KPro, I've started to answer the phone more, right? And so whenever people call into KPro, they're initially guarded, right? They don't know exactly what it is they're looking for. They've got a problem they don't know how to fix. But like finding a mechanic for a car, right? They're like, are you going to try to screw me? Right, you know what I mean? Like because,
well, I'm turning. Yeah, I'm already behind. Right. I'm already behind the curve. Yeah. They already don't trust me.
Yeah.
And we're at such a unique period in dogs, right?
Yeah.
In the evolution of dogs and how we see dogs. We don't have dogs are such an integral part of our lives, and we're understanding that we need to teach them how to live in our lives.
Absolutely.
Their instincts do not help them.
Not the innate instincts.
No, they don't. Mm-hmm. Also, one of the things we discussed last time, there's certifying bodies, right? Which we're going to dive into today.
Absolutely.
That's not a requirement right now. So there is no, I mean, we talk about lawyers, you go see a lawyer, you can see their law degree, you can see their bar passage, right? You go to a doctor, you see all their certificates. That's not necessarily the case with dog trainers. Yeah, it gets tricky in dog training. So how do you know that this person is worth the amount of money that they're charging? And not only just to focus on the money, but how is this person going, or this team or whatever, whomever, how are they going to treat your baby? How are they going to teach your dog and you? Because you also hit on something really, really amazing, is we are our dog's biggest problems most of the time. Sure. And some of our life moves very, very fast. We have traumas, we have issues. Sure. And some of those can filter down into the dogs. Everything flows down leash. Look, I'm not telling you you're wrong. I find it most often that, and I said this to somebody earlier this week, and here's the crux of the situation for me is oftentimes whenever dogs are having problems, right? That's symptomatic of, either its own instability, because some dogs aren't born totally perfect, right? Especially in today's environment, where they're at. Or that's that like classically conditioned part of the dog that it learned from the environment, and now we have other things to overcome. And in those environments, right? Like instability in the environment creates a lot of problems in our dogs as well. Nature versus nurture, not versus. It's not versus. Nature and nurture, right? Yeah. Some dogs by nature are just anxious. Some dogs by nature are just fearful. That's, like my female Malinois that you met earlier, Ghost, right? Like she came out of the womb rolling over for belly rubs with her tail tucked. Like there's no real fear in that dog. That's the behavior that she produces out of that submissive nature that she has. And sometimes, the things that we're seeing on the dog, don't necessarily connote truth. Very true. Even as well as we know dog body language. Yeah. We're not a dog. No. And their communication style and the depth of their communications is. Yeah. No, I'm with you, man. We're not dogs. We might be wolves. We might be wolves, but we're not dogs. We might be dogs. And but you take it for what it is, right? And you start to look at the animal itself and read the dog in hand and do the best you can. But that ownership portion is really important. And finding the dog trainer that can connect with you is super, super important. You mentioned certifications, and let's dig into that a little bit, right? So like when we're looking at certifications, there's lots of certifying bodies out there that charge dog trainers a lot of money to be a part of them, and have really stringent kind of criteria around continued engagement, right? So I'm a Council of Certified Professional Dog Trainers, knowledge assessed dog trainer, right? What that essentially means is that I prove to them that I have the knowledge it takes at their base level, right, to be a certified professional dog trainer, right? And for that, and I'll speak directly to it because I'm sure that there's going to be some dog trainers out there that are watching this that think that there's magic in getting certified, and there just isn't. Read enough books, watch enough videos, find a good mentor, really important, right? And then it's a 250 multiple choice test. That's at the end of the rainbow for certification in most places. Now, IACP is a little different, right? The International Association of Canine Professionals, a little different. They have a short answer test that you fill out, right? But essentially, it's like the same process. But it's worthwhile. I think it is, right? Because in that place where we find that third-party certification, it's a little bit of a life hack for the uninitiated, those who might, have their first dog only, right? To really go, hey, at least somebody else besides this guy says that he's good at what he is. An organization trust this individual. Right. Yes. And that's a reportable issue, right? So like if I break the ethics of certification council, right? There's a consequence for that. They can kick me out, right? And like I'll tell you straight up, somebody tried to report me in a state that I don't even work like 3 years ago. Right. And I'm like, was it a competitor? Oh, I think it might have been. So they're anonymous reporting. Right. So like, cause I was like, yo, tell me it's this person. Right. But like, because I had some presence there at the time.
But the reality of the situation is that, for certification, to our point, right? Like the big benefit there is, just like having a law degree, just like having a bachelor's or a master's or a PhD in something, right? It connotes a certain level of fluency with the subject matter. And so that's helpful from time to time. And it does smooth out, I think, the dog owner's experience in accessing, somebody who isn't going to hurt their dog.
Well, and you can also go to that, not only that individual's website or that company's website, but that organization and see what they stand for and see what this company or
what are they adhering to your point,
exactly.
Because the two that I just mentioned, CCPDT and IACP, they're kind of oppositional in a lot of ways.
Are they?
They really are.
See, I want to be honest, and you know this about me, but I am not certified, right? I am that opposite side of this conversation. Right. You ever heard the name Paul Stamets?
Yeah.
Love that guy, mushroom guy, and he's one of my all-time heroes. And that's that's not who I envision myself after. But
I learned how to figure out what turkey tail mushrooms are. From Paul
we
Stamets,
bought some lion's mane today from the farmer's market.
Oh man, you're gonna get all your childhood memories back, bro.
I'm pumped.
Yeah.
But my body of work has just put me into a position that the knowledge is there.
Yeah.
Right. And I have those certificates on the wall and I have all these things.
Sure.
I have the experience. I have
you were a military working dog handler too. Let's not forget.
And that's kind of where I was getting to this, right?
Yeah.
For 5 years, I had a dog that every flick of his ear or her ear, every movement of her tail meant life or death.
Oh, yeah.
Right. So I had that time where it literally was life or death. So I have a different type of studying of these dogs.
And on my side of it, man, like I was the beneficiary being in the infantry, being attached to the infantry, doing the whole thing, right? We're like at the embassy in Afghanistan, we had dog handlers that
called a force multiplier is what they're called.
Yes.
They said that myself and Kitty or a dog team was worth 25 people.
Yeah.
Because they are a full force multiplier.
And that's what I was saying is I've been the beneficiary of canines in the field, making sure that we're safe. Mm-hmm. Like I look at guys in your field and I go, man, I couldn't have thanked you enough. I wasn't a canine handler in the military. I was just a machine gunner, man. Like I was just hanging out doing cool stuff.
Beneficiaries, yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah, absolutely. Beneficiary is the right answer. That's right.
Machine gunner in the Marines, so beneficiary. Yep.
But it's true though. It's true though, because you know what? Those handlers that as we stood post one at the embassy, when we were standing things back up in Afghanistan, those handlers who checked those cars with their dogs coming in every day, those guys kept us safe.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. But back to our point of the certifications, excuse me. I do have that experience and I do have those things, right, that I think sets me apart. But my team does not.
Sure.
Right. My other trainers do not.
Sure.
And so there needs to be something because for what I do particular, it is a team effort. Same with you, right?
Yep.
Is you're not training every one of these dogs. It's a team effort. So it is important that everybody has a level of knowledge and a certifying body of some sort to say, okay, personally, I the way I work, I like having a I lost the word. They follow. You're
okay. When we look at this, right, it's okay to lose it, man. Like I lose it all the time, right? Like as we get older, we lose more and more of that. That lion's mane will bring it back, dude. I'm a racehorse on that thing, man. But, take this for what it is, man. Like looking at, those certifications, where they come from, how they engage, right? One of the things that I think that they do help us with from time to time is this next portion of life, right? Where, we worry about as dog owners ourselves, right? Like we worry about our dogs being mistreated. We worry about our dogs, not achieving the goals that we've set forward, right? Like we worry about a lot of those things on a regular basis. And one of the things that I find a lot in the industry, especially whenever, trainers are new, right? And this is a thing for me, right? Like I will tell most people and man, I'm going to get some hate for this here and there, but I'm okay with it. Right. But like, I think that most dog trainers kind of suck for the first 5 to 7 years. You know what I mean? Because like the reality is that you need to put some reps in
that goes into this job.
Absolutely.
There is so much. And you can think you know what you're doing. And then, like we talked about earlier, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years goes by and you look back and you're like, I can't believe I said that. I can't believe I did that.
I can't believe I would have ever done that with that dog.
I worked that way.
Absolutely. And it's experiential in a lot of ways, mm-hmm. right? So like, as we're walking through some of that, right? Like it's easy to bite off more than you can chew in the beginning, right? Go, oh man, like this was my favorite, right? Yes. Me? Right. Also, right. Like I'm the guy who was like, I've never met a dog that I can't fix. This is my favorite line that dog trainers who bite off more than they can chew regularly say, right? I've never met a dog that I can't fix. And I will tell you straight up, man, I've met dogs I can't fix. Yep. There are some neurologically broken dogs. There are some emotionally broken dogs that have been abused so unbelievably horribly that there is no real fixing it.
And that goes to something that I'm really strong about letting people know. The depths of emotions that these dogs mm-hmm. experience is far greater than not we, but we give credit for, right?
Sure.
These dogs experience emotions that we just didn't expect them to experience.
Right.
I've had dogs in my house that I swear I think were dealing with depression and just a level of sadness that I just didn't think they could.
Oh, come on, man. You never read Where the Red Fern Grows?
Oh, I love that book.
Of course you do, bud.
Actually, that might have been one of my first books I ever read, actually.
Right. But that was the first place that I'm in third grade, literally living in West Virginia at the time that I read this book, right?
Oh, man.
Like it's funny. My wife's from Miami, grew up in, Miami Springs, right? And she read this book about the same time I did. And she just could not connect. Right. And I'm like, but I was running the river bottoms in my bare feet.
I know here.
I knew the kids who were actually out coon hunting with their dad at night. You know what I mean? And so like when these two red bone coon hounds come home and they fall desperately in love with this little boy and each other, right? Like that was some of the origin of my love for dogs too. You know what I mean? Is that connection in that book. And I bring it back up because you keyed right in on it, right? And that's the idea that dogs do have a depth of emotion there, right? We're led to believe, scientifically that it is shallower or less nuanced than ours. And I believe that to a degree. I think less nuanced is true. I think they have more base emotion sets, but I think they're as deep as we've got.
I would be very interested to see the science behind that idea.
Sure.
I'd be very, very, very interested because you're right. I don't want to go and venture off and say that I think that, not to disagree with you or agree with you.
Right.
But the line of thinking is correct. Like the idea that they don't experience the emotions that we experience is wrong. It's just wrong.
No. I think you're right. I think, one of the things that, there was a Boston College study, I don't know, maybe a decade ago now. It's been a long time, but they wanted to understand whether or not dogs actually love us. Right. And one of the like ancillary findings in that,
rather than knowing that we are like listening to us is in their best interest,
right?
Like that was their idea.
Yeah, okay. Like, hey, look, do dogs experience honest connection and emotion? And what they found is that dopamine and oxytocin are released in the brain at about the same level as can be witnessed in ours when we see a loved one, when they see their person.
That's amazing.
You know what I mean? And so the answer is, yeah, they love us,
That's
right?
Awesome.
One of the ancillary findings in that particular research was that they can also read and interpret over 127 different facial expressions we make.
That's one of my favorite things to tell us clients.
Yeah.
This dog is watching you constantly.
Yeah.
It knows every bit of your facial expressions, your body posture, your tone of voice,
right.
All of this stuff.
Right.
Getting back to what you were talking about with the emotions, one of my favorite quotes, you're going to like this. A dog is the only creature alive that will love you more than they love themselves.
Oh, yeah.
And I've heard that many times, in right? working dogs, especially, right? Working dogs. I mean, I've been around dogs that were shot multiple times, didn't let go of the bite, still healed to their owner, their handler. I mean, they love hard.
I'll tell you, anybody who, man, you're going to get my feelings on this, man. And I'm not crying on the show ever, right? So you might as well forget it.
I'm not making that promise.
But I know, me neither, man. But I'm gonna work hard on it. But here's the deal, right? Is when you reach in the depths, you really start to understand the dog. I tell people all the time. I said, we do this thing that we call neotenization with dogs a lot these days. And this is one of those things that you can tell you found maybe the trainer that's not for you if they walk in and start to baby talk your dog, right? And drive arousal. You know what I mean? Like, take it for what it is, man. I don't know how you feel about that, but your laugh is telling, right? Yep. But like, take this for what it is, right? Like when we walk in and we use that distance decreasing vocalization that drives that arousal just absolutely insane, we know right away that like, hey, this person probably hasn't worked a lot of dogs.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Or their belief structure around dogs isn't quite in line with modern technique.
And even if they have worked a lot of dogs, there's still trainers out there using techniques that have been proven to not be as effective or humane.
Right. Well, dominance theory, right? Like, you know, when we talk about compulsory trainers, right? Or bond trainers, that's the new flashy name for compulsion trainers these days. Really? Right. Because we form a bond with your dog and they love us because of the bond, right? And it's like, so you snatch the dog around on a prong collar a whole ton, right? Which in some instances is maybe appropriate, maybe not. And we could talk about that, right? But, you know, at the end of the day, did that create a bond or did that create a dog who was afraid to move away from you? You know, like there's a great, you know, and reading the dog in hand there, of course, is paramount. But the reality for me is if I'm looking for a great dog trainer, right? What are those early hallmarks of a great dog trainer that we can isolate that say, hey, this person probably knows what's going on? I hire dog trainers for a living. You hire dog trainers for a living. What are those things in the people that we're hiring that we're looking at as far as natural aptitude, as far as learnability? Like, what are those things that we're really looking at that are going, hey, this person's probably really good at what they're going to do or can be in a short amount of time, you know?
Yeah. And it's a really interesting question, which is why this is our topic, right? Because if you're not an expert on dogs, how do you know that the person you're talking to is?
Right.
Outside of those things we already talked about, the certifying bodies and stuff like that, which are helpful, but not complete.
Sure.
And I think one of the best things you can do as a client is just to do your homework.
Yeah.
Right. Call around, ask around. Don't just go with the first dog trainer that pops up on Google, right?
Sure.
Google uses advertisements. You can pay to be the top person up there. And so that doesn't necessarily mean that's the best. I do too. Yeah, absolutely. But that doesn't, just because they're out there and in your face and in front of you, doesn't mean they're the right one for you.
Right. And don't be fooled by that flashy marketing stuff either. Don't get me wrong. I do a lot of really awesome marketing. Like
you just redid all your marketing.
I did. I just redid it.
And it is important, right?
To soften it to a degree. You have to show
yourself and
right.
show your...
Yeah, absolutely. So like, you know, I just did a whole new marketing rollout this year for my company at KPro. You know, take it for what it is. You know, when we're looking at marketing, sometimes that marketing induces buying in places that it shouldn't, right? Like we know that about Walmart, right? If you see something for like, you know, 89, you know, like $4.89 at Walmart, right? You know that if you wait just a little bit longer, it's going to be $4.97, and then we can make, you know, a little bit, you know, like the way that we have structured our society kind of goes into this is my point, right? And so when you're looking at this, I'm with you. Even if you get a recommendation from a friend, hey, this is the best dog trainer on the planet, right? You should interview. My advice to people is you should interview 3.
I like that. Yeah.
You know,
and
you should
in
interview
some
3.
areas there aren't 3 dog trainers, right? Because we are in this new this changing world as far as pet ownership goes. And when I came onto the scene a couple of years ago, when I started doing my own thing, there really wasn't much around.
Sure.
But now there is. You have a lot more, even now, even after just a few years, there's a lot more choice.
Yeah. What I'm going to tell you is in one of my markets, one of my oldest markets for KPro, we have gone from 5 dog training businesses to 27 dog training businesses.
That sounds about right.
In the last 3 years. Right. I mean, like it's been an absolute explosion in that market. So of young folks who don't always know what they're doing. And don't get me wrong. Some of those young folks that are coming on the scene, they've done the hard work. They've put in the reps. They had a great mentor. They know what they're doing. They're real dog trainers. There's one dog trainer that I'm thinking about in specific. I would have hired in a heartbeat. She was a fantastic dog trainer. Right. And she's young, you know, like she's in her mid-20s and like she's killing the game, but she has availed herself to every conference, every continuing ed. She's third-party certified. She's taken the hits and done the hard work to make sure that the product that she is presenting is as professional and solid as possible. And that's one of the things that I look for, right? In dog trainers, whenever I'm hiring them, even whenever I'm hiring them out of their own business, which I do pretty regularly. Running a business isn't easy.
It's tough.
It's not easy.
Yes.
It's a lot of work. It's, hey, I woke up at 6:00 this morning and I'm thinking about my business. I went to sleep at 11:30 tonight, drifting off thinking about my business.
Every day.
Right? Every day, all day long. You know it. I know it. And not everybody's built for it, right? There's a book out there called The E-Myth, which I think, almost everybody who gets into business should absolutely read, right? That breaks, individuals into different categories, right? Not every business person is a tech, right? And those techs are vital for business to continue to succeed. But when techs try to run business and become entrepreneurs, oftentimes the practices start to slip, right? And so that's one of the dangers that we can kind of point out, right? Is that like, if you're kind of like a solo, dog trainer, yeah, I've done it. You've done it, right? But we didn't stay there. If you've been a solo dog trainer for 25 years, chances are you're not running with the pack.
I think this idea is interesting. I could see myself being an individual dog trainer. The problem is I would have one dog at a time. Once you start giving yourself out to multiple dogs, and we have this as one of the topics, right? Overstretching yourself.
Yeah.
It's really easy because, again, going back, we're not cheap.
Yeah.
We're making some money. So you can say, I can have 4 dogs at a time. I can do that. Be careful.
How?
Be careful.
Right. So like at my company, you can have 2 board and trains at a time only. Right. Because if you're splitting your time more than 2 board and trains, right, like chances are the product that you're producing,
the dog is not getting the time or the energy or attention they need.
Right. This is my problem with facility training where, hey, like I pack a facility full of 15, 20 dogs. Right. And I've got 3 trainers on staff and they're spending time on task orientation every day. I'm going to teach the dog to place for 30 minutes. I'm going to have 7 dogs on place boards. I'm going to have a Garmin that, I can access 3 dogs on a switch up, 3 dogs on a switch down. And, like I'm going to work e-collar work just across the board in facility. You know what I mean? I worry about those dogs and I worry about the outcome. I said before, hey, there's no magic in this, right? And I really believe that there's no magic in dog training.
There's a million ways to do this, right?
Right. Because like as infinite as your ability to improvise improvise a portion of instruction for the dog that is viable and works is the amount of ways that there are to train a dog. So I'm not saying that, hey, this way or that way is necessarily wrong. I have belief structure around this too, which is kind of one of those next things that I really look for in the entirety of the body of finding a good dog trainer is, do you believe about dogs what I believe about dogs? And I'll tell you that you disagree with me a little bit about the way that I encounter dogs, right? So like, I think to call them our children diminishes their majesty. That's me, right? So like, I've worked a lot in canine stuff. I live with 2 Belgian Malinois and a really drivey little bulldog, right? And I'm constantly looking for the wolf inside my dog because like there's majesty in that, right? There's majesty in watching a dog work a track.
Especially doing work,
yes. Right? There's majesty in watching the dog come onto the bite in practice, even for the profession that it's going to be encountering in the field, right? Looking at some of those ideas, even in personal protection, hey, listen, there are people that walk around our society on a regular basis that need protection. Folks that have, left abusive relationships, folks that, have a lot of resources and not a lot of, friends, you know what I mean? Seriously. Right. Like there are a lot of places in which we find intersections where people are in need of protection that they can't provide for themselves. One famous example of that is a woman who's an actress and she walks around with a Malinois all day long and that Mal goes with her everywhere she goes. Her name's Eva Mendes and she's probably the only woman that I would ever consider leaving my wife for. Right. But like my wife has said, yeah, and I wouldn't even be mad, bro. You know what I mean? But the reality of the situation is that there are people that need protection in the world and there's a place for that. There's a place to walk around with a loaded gun
or with a wolf.
Make it no mistake, right? Like not everybody needs it.
not everybody needs it or wants it. Right.
Sure.
I agree.
Topping up, bro.
Please.
Yeah.
And you do it so that I don't spill it.
I got you, my dude. Yeah, go on. Say what you're saying.
So the dogs as children thing, I think you're right, actually. I don't like looking at dogs as children. However, I do think that training dogs is a lot like raising children. And then it's a lot not.
Say more.
In the same exact sentence, right? You reward the behavior you like, and you correct the behavior that you don't like to something you do like, behavior modification.
Sure.
Right? Thinking of them as a child in the sense that, oh, they need to be on the couch and I want to put them in a stroller. None of that. No. But as far as just, here's the ultimate way that I look at my dogs as a child. They don't know how to live in my household. And if I don't teach them how to live in a household, they're not going to know. So my way of teaching my children is by showing them, hey, I like when you do this. And because you did this correctly, I'm going to give you something awesome, right? You made all A's on your report card. Let's go out to dinner and get ice cream.
Star.
Yep.
Yeah.
The dog's the same way. Hey, I really like that you did this thing. Because you did that, I'm going to give you something awesome. Yeah. But as far as, and we'll say this, I'll kind of leap over to another thing. There's a big, big difference between giving a dog what they want and giving a dog what they need. And dogs have strong needs. Dogs have different needs and different drives than we do, right? They have that prey drive, that defensive drive, the hunt drive, sometimes the fight drive, things that we have not evolved out of, but have evolved maybe a little bit above. Dogs have not.
Look,
and
at least we've got opposable thumbs, right?
That's it. Yeah.
It's helpful.
But dogs are kind of catching up to this society, if you will, because their drives are teaching them or telling them, driving them to do things that just don't work in a household.
No, and I'll tell you, I mean, I think to your point, they're catching up, right?
Yes,
at an unprecedented rate.
They're very adaptable.
When we were kids, and take this for what it is, guys, Chris is a little bit younger than I am, but I'm in my early 40s. Whenever I was a kid, it was really, really common in the 80s and 90s to watch somebody have a dog in a chain in the backyard, and nobody, toted their nose, nobody raised an eyebrow, nobody was really, put off by that.
No one gave a shit.
Right. And now there are lots and lots and lots of city and county and parish. If you're here in Louisiana, it's parishes, right? Like city and county and parish ordinances, right? That say, hey, listen, you can't have a dog on a chain anymore. They need to be in a 10 by 10 run, which cuts their square footage down immensely, but also, I get the desire to formalize the care of the dog a little bit. And I think that those places are built out of the idea that, hey, we want to care for the dogs better. But again, finding the dog trainer that I said all that to say this, finding the dog trainer that sits with your belief structure around dogs, right? That can connect with you at a very deep level as to what do you believe this animal is? Whenever I say I look for the wolf inside my dog, right? I recognize that this dog is an opportunistic predator and that there is not a single tooth in its mouth that is not designed to cleave meat from bone. And there's even more shocking things that sometimes I say to people to illustrate that point.
Your illustration of them as right. The modern day of the sharks of the land.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Right. So that's a great point, right? That I say that, hey, living with these little opportunistic predators is kind of like living with land sharks that just circle our home, right? They just kind of hang out with us. Now, don't get me wrong. I live with alligators, right? So that is a very real scenario for me, right? Where these animals are very primal in their presentation. You know it from being a military working dog handler. I know it from being a dog trainer for 26 years, right? And the reality is that I have those animals for purpose. My dogs are titled multiple sports. We compete together. We have fun together. I'm about to take off for a month through July. And go hike with them for a month in the mountains. You know what I mean? That's my getaway every year. You can, bro. I'm telling you, we have room in my father's house. Right. So Whenever I tell you, man, if you want to pop up for a weekend, we can do that.
I'm all about camping in the woods with dogs.
But getting in here and really understanding again, like, how do we find that place, right? There are techniques that have evolved over time. Some of the warning bells or the red flags that go off in my mind whenever I listen to dog trainers talk is if they're really an antiquated ideas, right? If, we're functioning primarily on what I kind of crassly call the oxygen economy. These are choke chain trainers, right? That say, hey, listen, you are allowed to live as long as you live the way that I tell you. You're allowed to have access to oxygen as long as you do what I say.
And in the military,
that really bothers me.
In the military, that was a real thing.
Of course
we used not, it's a bad way to say it, but the pain. What is the keeping away from pain?
The avoidance.
Avoidance of pain is a drive that they have.
Absolutely.
And so we used that significantly in the military.
So we call that escape and avoidance training in modern dog training, right? And that's compulsory. That's compulsory training in its essence, right? Is that I need to figure out how to escape the predicament that I'm in or avoid getting back into it, right? That's escape and avoidance.
And one of the things, I'm going to kind of jump back. One of the things you said that really hit is you do all these things with your dogs, right? These competitions and stuff like that. That's really fun and really awesome. Not everybody wants that either.
No.
Right? So
don't buy them out.
So please don't buy them out. Please don't buy them out unless you're like this guy. Please
don't buy them out.
Just don't do it to yourself.
Don't buy them out. Don't do it. Leave my breed alone.
Call him and not me.
For real.
But like, what do you as a person, as a client, what do you want out of your dog?
What's your goal set?
That's a really good question.
Yeah. What's your goal set?
What do you want out of this dog? Do you want him just to stop peeing in the house?
What are those things?
Do you want a trick dog?
Yeah.
Do you want somebody that's going to go everywhere with you?
Do you want to bang your dead dog?
Right. Do you want a trick dog?
Yeah.
Right. And that goes really, one of the things we should have added in these topics is not only how to train, pick your trainer, but your dog. And maybe we can talk about that because that's a whole conversation.
That's a whole other conversation. Picking a breed's a whole other conversation.
But with your trainer, what do you want to get out of this training?
Right.
Because like we have discussed a couple of times, there's a lot of ways to do this and a lot of end goals. Mm-hmm. And if your goals doesn't match your trainer's goals, then even if your trainer did a great job, you're still not getting the product that you wanted.
No, seriously, right? So like if the trainer that you are interviewing isn't asking about your end goal, that's to put this succinctly, right? Like that's a warning bell, right? Mm-hmm. Like that's a red flag for me that says, hey, listen, if you're not considering your client and where they want to go, right? Because a lot of dog trainers are like, it's my way or the highway.
Right. No, this is my program. This is how I do it. I know it works. I've seen it work. Okay, you might be right.
Sure. But you're
providing a service to someone else.
Right.
And if that service doesn't match what they want, then they should go somewhere else.
Absolutely. Because, if your trainer's not invested in helping you achieve your goals, how are you going to get to them?
Right.
You know what I mean?
And again, that doesn't mean that that's a bad trainer. It's just not for you.
Right.
And you've said it multiple times. I say it all the time. I'm not everybody's trainer.
No,
I'm not.
And I wouldn't want to be. Take this for what it is. Like this is one of the things that you and I, like, we hang out and we talk about this almost every time we hang out, is that your clients aren't my clients aren't your clients. We wouldn't want each other's clients in most cases. There's probably a Venn diagram out there somewhere of clients that both Chris and Evan would connect with really well. Uh-huh. You know what I mean? And also like align with the belief sets that we have, when we look at it, right, like over and over again as balanced trainers, both of us, right, like we're not that far off the reservation from each other. I'm certainly not a force-free guy, right, like completely. I wish that I could be. That's my wish, right? Same. I wish that I could free shape every behavior just like we do on, large mammals, sea lions, whales. I wish that I could free shape every behavior and take the time that it requires to do that. But in professional dog training, our clients don't really give us that amount of time, do they?
And even if they did, you have, how old's Gabe? How old's your boy?
Oh yeah, 14? My boy's 13. Yeah.
We talk about treating them as kids, right?
Yeah.
Have you ever had to correct your son? Have you ever had to punish your son?
So,
right?
Really
and punishment is not correction. Those are two very, very different words. But dogs push boundaries. right?
Sure they do.
They push
it's their
boundaries
job.
And they have to understand that, hey, no means no.
Here's my favorite way to describe that. And I want to give this to you. I'm not sure that you've ever heard this before because I think I made it up, right?
Give it to me.
But dogs are hardwired to either be the leader or follow competent leadership.
Yes, I agree. I agree 100%. They are pack animals, right? They're always seeing like, can I go to that next level? Yes or no? And if yes, all right, let's test these boundaries.
But what does that competency look like? In my mind, it should be beneficent, right? It should be loving.
There's so much more to being a leader than listen to what I say.
Compassionate, empathetic.
You are there to provide guidance, support, love, encouragement, all of these things. But again, a dog has to understand that, hey, no means no.
And if you're encountering a dog trainer, right, who's like, hey, listen, there's, essentially there's no quarter for your dog here. They're either going to get it right or they're going to get it wrong, and there's no gray area, right? Like that's one of those places where
made up of gray area.
Right. And that's one of those places where I really start to scratch my head a bit, right? Because when we look at this idea, we understand that dogs' level of cognition is like what, like a 2 or 3 year old tops?
Yeah. Tops. 3-year-old. Yep.
Smartest dogs in the world, right? 3-year-old level, right? And so like we know it at a human level of cognition, we don't know the concepts of right and wrong at 3 years old. It's impossible for us.
You're right.
We grasp abstract concept in people somewhere. And don't get me wrong, for guys, it comes on a little later. For ladies, they advance much sooner than us, right? Me too, but it's okay. But, we grasp those concepts typically somewhere between 11 and 13. Where like, hey, we can really form abstract concept. We can improvise. We can adapt. And as Gabe's been 13, right? Like I saw this come on him about 11 and a half. Coolest thing in my life, right? Because I'm engaged in applied behavioral analytics on a regular basis. I don't have an ABA degree or anything like that, but like, that's what I do for a living. Right.
Mm-hmm. And so you take pride in it.
Absolutely.
It's very obvious hearing you talk every time.
Sure.
You talk.
And I appreciate that. And so, whenever Gabe came on, I went, oh man, you're starting to ask some cool questions all of a sudden.
That's a fun
You're starting to wonder about the universe and how things work and what are ethics and how does the whole thing, how does society put itself together and where am I going to go in society one day? That started to happen for him specifically at about 11 and a half, almost 12 years old, right? Dogs are never going to get there.
No.
They don't have a moral compass, right? And so they don't know right from wrong. And so while we use reinforcers and punishers to manipulate behavior and operant conditioning, right? We don't have to be assholes about it.
I think corrections, and again, I'll say corrections and punishment are two different things, right?
Walk that out for me.
So I don't think a dog should be punished because of what you just said. They don't know right from wrong, right? So you don't punish them because they don't understand right from wrong, but you can correct them and say, hey, I don't like this behavior. Why don't you do this instead? I mean, that's a baseline of behavior modification, right? So you do need it. To me, corrections are a method of communication.
Right.
They should not be hurtful. They should not be harmful. They can be a little uncomfortable at times.
Yeah.
But it's a method of communicating. Watch a mom dog or mom wolf or mom lion, right?
Tell me.
How do they correct their dogs? Grab them.
They grab them.
Shake them.
Right.
Right. It's a method of communicating. Don't do that.
Mm-hmm.
And it's, again, there's a way to do it properly and humanely and a way to communicate without breaking that bond between you and that dog.
Sure.
And without causing any amount of harm.
As I say all the time, that the essence, right, of building obedience in a dog is developing vocabulary between you.
Yes.
And because all of our idiosyncrasies and everybody watching this, right, is going to know, and everybody listening to us, right, I'll just say, take this for what it is, right? Like our own individual idiosyncrasies in movement, your dog knows. They're using the same. Absolutely. They're using the same. Yep. They're using the same pattern recognition software in their brain to figure you out as that they use to pick the weak one out of the herd. Yes. In their ancestry.
And they're sitting at home all day. They have nothing else to do.
Oh,
how much do you have to do?
Yeah, you're
right.
You're gonna poke the novelty of STEM in me, man.
Oh my goodness, they have nothing to do. They know
Absolutely.
us. I tell people all the time, like, your dog has you trained very well. They train us very, very well.
They come over, they put the little paw up, right, and then you just reach down, you know, and touch their head, and you love them, right? And all they did was they came over and pushed a little button on you, like a morphine pump for a dopamine hit.
Pet me.
You know what I mean? Hey,
Pet
look,
me.
man, pet me, hang out with me, love me more, worship me, maybe. I don't know. Look, I've met some Pomeranians. I'm just saying, right? Worship me. Yes. You know what I mean? Like that stuff's real. It's out there, right? And like, you know, I can't imagine. And with that said, right, like I can't imagine like putting a palm on a choke chain, right? You know what I mean? I've seen it in the industry. Don't get me wrong.
Put those things on slip leads or
right.
I mean, you can't. Yeah.
Right. Like, you know, you got to do a lot of free shaping there, right? Because like they're so fragile, right? And so this gets back to like tools, right? Like what are some of those tools that you see in dog training that you go, hey, listen, this stuff might be problematic. This might be some of the things that we're talking about that we really need to pay attention to.
You know what? And I'm interested to get your take on this, actually. I'm glad you asked. I love a slip lead. It's one of my favorite tools ever.
What's the difference between that and a choke chain?
You know, I've been thinking about it and I don't really know besides the ease. It's easy for me as a trainer.
Sure.
That's not a reason to use a tool. Okay. That's not a reason. Let me put that out there. It's not that's not why I use it. But it's a very, very easy communication tool and it's self-correcting.
Here's the slip leads that I like are what I call a mitigated slip. So you can buy these openly on the market now. They actually have a buckle in between the action ring that slides to the dog's neck, right? Yep. So that we can mitigate the amount of pressure that it puts on the dog. Yep. We can actually set that so that, hey, we know that the dog felt the input that we put on the leash without crushing the vitals that exist in the neck, right? So a lot of the shelter work that we do at KPro, so like, you know this about our company, right? That like every one of our trainers spends at least 2 hours in the shelter a week. Every last one of us, myself included, right? I'm actually engaged in a couple of shelters right now that I'm actually really excited about the work that we're doing there. One of them over here in Southeast Louisiana, they have committed to me their entire program will become certified, third-party certified professional dog trainers by the time we're done.
That's incredible.
And I'm super excited. Right. So
you're just breeding competition for us.
Of course.
Area. Okay, cool.
Because I believe this, man. I believe this.
Advertising is going to have to go up now.
It is, man. You're going to have to spend some more money. I apologize. Me too. But here's the deal, right? Is I believe that the more people that I educate to that level, the more dogs get treated well. And that's my goal.
1,000%.
Right. And so like, I'm not worried about the competition aspect. These folks work in the shelter. They work every day. They need to work safely. They need to do all the things. But like, one of the things that I'm really specific about with my shelter workers, right, is like, hey, we're on martingales that limit the amount of damage we can do. We're on mitigated slips that can limit the amount. I just don't like unlimited tool use, right? So like whenever I can literally like with a choke chain, like crush a dog all the way down to the smallest increment. I'm not a big fan of that.
Well, and when you talk about tools, you need to talk about the education behind the tools, right?
I agree.
I can put any tool in your hand and know that it's going to be used properly, right? I can't say that for everybody, unfortunately.
No.
I'm not sending a dog home with a prong collar or an e-collar or a slip lead if I think that tool has a chance
or an
e-collar, right?
Yeah.
Of being used inappropriately. And there are trainers out there that do. I saw one this weekend, actually, if we could talk about that.
Sure. I mean, like we run into dog trainers on a regular basis, right? That, do use tools that are just not the tools that we prefer, right? And so like when we are looking at those tools, that should be part of our metric in how we choose the dog training that we want, right?
I agree.
I understand, take this for what it is. You and I can both use a prong collar in a way that is as minimally averse to a dog as humanly possible. And even at KPro, that's like a last resort, as I'm sure it is at Canine Coaching, right? So I haven't
used one in a while, but they're there if you need.
But it's important, right? That we don't say no to a tool because some dogs need that tool.
I have a personal dog. Well, my ex-wife Shayna has a personal dog that's still on a prong collar.
Sure.
And he's perfect on it. You take that dog off a prong collar and nope.
Yeah, he's gone, right?
Yep.
And so take it for what it is. Dogs have that level of gear association and their associative memory that comes along with this. And when you're choosing somebody, right, to really work with you, that belief structure is around what tool is appropriate, what tool is inappropriate, what things can't you stomach as an owner. Really important, right? So for instance, right, I met with somebody not long ago and I sat in their home and they said, hey, listen, I'm in, you're obviously an expert. You do this for a living. I believe that whoever you're going to put in front of me is going to be fantastic. My one place where like, I just can't go with you is if you recommend a prong collar, I'll fire you. Right. And I went, that's fair.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right?
If that's not what you want,
because that's not what you want.
Yeah,
that's not what you want. Right. And so, you know, and that's one of those things that's really important. Right. So when we talk about the right way to find a trainer, right, and this is as important as knowing what not to look for. I'm not a big fan of, hey, I use cookies until, you know, the dog dies, right? Like, yeah,
nobody
treats
wants
are
to
good.
Walk around with a
right.
full of treats.
Right. Primary reinforcers are important, right? Like reinforced behavior is important, right? But there's a proofing process in operant conditioning that gets us off of that. And if we're 15, 20 sessions in and we're not off cookies yet for the, you know, the basic behaviors, benchmark behaviors, sit down, stay, right? Like we're probably doing it wrong.
That dog's not doing what you're asking.
Right.
They're doing what they need to do for a treat.
They're incentivized.
That's
only.
A big
right?
difference.
Yeah.
Yep. I want my dogs to work for me because they want to work for me.
Right.
And I want them to take pride in what they're doing because they know it's fun.
Agreed.
And it's engaging and it's in their best interest.
Right.
Because
Agreed.
I am going to toss you treats periodically.
Right.
But you're not there. There's a big difference between me saying, hey, do this thing for me. Look what I got. Do this thing for me. And saying, hey, do this thing for me. Good job, man.
Here. I appreciate that.
Yep. Thank you.
And so, you know, like for me, like finding the right dog trainer has everything to do with finding somebody who agrees with your base notion, right? And then moving on to, hey, even in those places where we don't necessarily agree, because like, I'm not sure, making sure that there is proof of education, proof of experience, proof of work in their resume, in their portfolio, right? Like if you ask me, hey man, how do I know that you're good? Right? Because I've been off the street for a little while, seeing regular dog training clients on a regular basis, right? I would have to point back to 5-star reviews that I got a few years ago, right? Meanwhile, my regular trainers that are out there are still achieving some of those 5-star reviews. Their name's in it, right? It's not simply the business name, but it's like, hey, you know, for instance, you know, Nate at KPro K9 is just absolutely fantastic. He knows everybody. He does everything. He does all the great things with dogs. I don't recommend anybody else. He changed my life. He did you know, all the great things that our clients end up saying about us. Right. I look for that. Right. I look for, the level of professionalism that meets me at the door whenever I invite them into my home. Right. So like, do they have a uniform? Don't they? If they don't have a uniform, do they have a neat appearance? Right. Did they, you know, I had one trainer years ago. I looked at him and I said, man, I really like your car, man. But like, you know, if you're going to show up in certain neighborhoods, man, that car is probably not the car to show up there. You know what I mean? Like it was a heavily customized import tuner kind of a situation. And I'm like, how do you think a soccer mom's going to feel whenever you come in there? Whoa.
Yep.
You know?
Perceptions matter.
Right. And so like, you know, understanding who you're talking to and making sure that somebody has at least the fluency for their audience is also for me, like really important, you know? And then here's a great question, right? How do you know in dog training whenever you're engaged in like a little bit maybe of a scam?
So when do you know like, oh, I'm
in trouble.
Messed up?
Yeah.
That's a good question. I think we all, if we slow down enough, all have that intuition. We all have that that icky feeling. We all have.
Some people are pretty analytic. They don't. What are those markers?
I think if they rely too much on tools. I think we just talked about tools, right? I'm a big fan of slip leads. I think prong collars have a place. What do we talk about, Spilling? Come on, man. Get a hold of yourself.
It's whiskey and wolves, bro. We're gonna get a little bit more clumsy as the day goes on. I'm here to tell you.
But if you're working with someone or attempting to work with someone and they're just like, nope, I work with e-collars.
Yeah.
I work with prong collars.
E-collars only.
Why?
I start a dog on an e-collar. I finish a dog on an e-collar.
Right.
I worry about franchises that do that.
Yes. And I think e-collars are terrific tools.
I agree.
For specific dogs and for specific reasons.
Low stem e-collar stuff, I'm all in, right?
Yes.
No button e-collar stuff.
Yes. And
I get weird.
And that idea has flip-flopped over the last couple of years. And that e-collars before were known as what? Shock collars.
Shock collars.
You don't listen, you shock them.
Right.
That's not what they're for. But
in escape and avoidance, it is.
There's still people out there using them that way. And so, and that to me is one of the things is are you teaching my dog how to communicate, or are you punishing my dog for things that I don't want them to do? Growing up in my household, younger Chris, young Chris, is we taught dogs what we didn't like. We never taught them what we liked.
Yeah, sure.
We just taught them, hey, no. I mean,
oh no, trust me. I grew up in like my first dog, like potted in the house, rubbed their nose in it, smacked them on the bottom, tossed them outside, right?
And
like that's
learned.
the old school way of doing it, and they did. But what did they learn?
But it's not really right. What did they learn? They learned what not to do.
Right.
We could flip that and make it a whole lot more fun.
Because they learned through fear,
what to do.
Right?
Yes.
Exactly.
And you have learned through fear. You're a Marine.
Oh, buddy, I've learned a lot of things through fear, my friend.
You don't learn as well. Fear, pain is a great teacher, right? But who wants to learn that way?
No,
I don't want to.
No, I shut down in a lot of ways, right? So, like, if you inflict a lot of pain on me, I start to see a little red, man, and now we've got conflict, and now you better be ready.
And dogs are similar. Yeah,
you better be ready because, like, I don't care who you are, man. Like, if you really hurt me, and I mean hurt me, chances are I'm coming for you.
And there are some dogs like that.
Yeah.
But I think the majority of them, especially now through domestication and breeding, right, are the opposite. They're just going to shut down.
Yeah.
They're just going to stop listening.
Quit.
And right, they're just going to quit working for you. And then you get to a point where the dog is just scared because they're confused and they don't know what you're asking of them. They just know what they're not supposed to do. Right. And they don't know, well, where should I go? Right. And that may be a good question for us as clients, right? Not us, but as clients to ask is, what are you teaching?
Right. What is the clarity of communication that you're providing? Right. That's one of those, like for me, that's a tip and trick that I think is really important in avoiding some of those scam trainers that are out there. Who are going to look at you in your face. They're going to have great marketing. They're going to have all those things that you want, right? They may have even paid for 50 5-star Google reviews, right?
Or worked in Hollywood for a little while.
I mean,
had pictures with
look,
people.
Man, I did one movie, bro. One movie. Anyway, but like, they're going to have like, hey, look, they paid to get their picture with Cesar Millan at a conference. They paid to get their picture with another famous dog trainer at a conference. Mike Ritlin, right? Does conferences. You can pay to get a picture with that guy. Team dog training, right? Was his book.
You'll be there one day, man. Don't get
look,
upset.
man, I'll probably be there. Yeah. Anyway, no, I don't want to be there. The point is this, right? Is like when we're looking at that, oftentimes, it's not, I think this, I don't think that most trainers are actually scamming you. I think most trainers are just biting off more than they can chew, to go back to that previous idea.
Or don't know what they don't know.
Right.
This job, I mean, the longer you've been in it, you've been in it a long time. The longer you're in it, the more you learn. And just like we talked, I think we discussed it earlier, is like, I look back sometimes like, oh my God, I can't believe I trained that way.
I did that.
Oh, I can't believe I said that. I can't believe I told people that.
20 years ago, dude, 20 years is a long time, right? Like, you've been working dogs a long time. I've been working dogs a long time. Research has changed so much.
It's still changing. Yes.
Dominance theory, alpha dog stuff. Oh, I'm the alpha in my house. I hear that 5 times a week, right? I'm the alpha in my house. And I look at you and I go, okay, what that told me was that, like, you're kind of a butthead to your dogs, chances are. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want you to be a butthead to your dogs, man. I want you to fall into deep and meaningful relationship with your animal. I want you to understand who they are intrinsically. I want you to move from a place where we go, hey, I love my dog. And because I love my dog, I do the things for my dog that are really important.
And that beautiful sentences that you just said, that's how you treat your dog like a baby.
Yeah.
That's how you treat your dog like your child, right? You raise them and you teach them in a way that you would your child.
Right. You expose them to the things you want them to be interested in. I want my dogs to go hiking with me, so I'm going to develop a scheme to go hiking. I want my dog,
and you encourage that behavior.
My one dog's a PTSD service dog, right? I want my dog to be able to provide those behavioral interrupts and provide that emotional support for me in those places where they are. I want my dog to be able to perform space holding abilities for me, man, because like whenever I get in certain scenarios that are really congested, I'm like, dude, I need a little bit more space right here, right? That kind of thing's really important. You know what I mean? And so like when we look at, how do we find the best dog trainer? I think I break it down from our conversation into just a couple of places, right? We look for somebody who we can find proof of education, whether that's in person or whether that's on a website somewhere. Hey, we have proof of education. They can obviously articulate concepts that we didn't have access to prior, right? That's important, right? Number one,
Agreed.
That we can have proof of education. The second thing that we're looking for, right, is that we're looking for not just a flashy marketing scheme, right, but somebody who can put the rubber to the road. We're looking for proof of work in that individual as well.
And that's a lot easier nowadays with Google and Facebook.
Absolutely.
And
look at their training videos. Every dog trainer I know, right?
And on Google, I mean, you can actually click on these people and message them directly.
Yeah.
Hey, why did you leave this review? Are you Evan's best friend who just, Evan's the best? Or did you send a dog through Evan's program? Tell me about it, right?
Right. Are you Evan's mom with a different last name? Right. I don't know.
You can reach out to these people and find and do the research yourself.
Yeah.
Excuse me. Continue though. I know you
But no. And then like one of the other things that I'm really looking for, right, is a training modality that aligns with how I feel about my dog, right?
Yes.
So like, I may be the kind of person who wants a dog that responds every time without fail. Everybody wants that, but they don't really want that. To get that becomes like this robotic kind of an idea. Dogs are individuals with their own thoughts, feelings, desires, right? They're all engaged in their own relationship with us, right? And so, I'll tell you that my female Malinois has a very different relationship with me than my male Malinois has a very different relationship with my female bulldog, right? And in those places, right, we need to make sure that the things that we're seeing are really solid, right? That the person that we're going to hire aligns very closely with our thought processes. Otherwise, it doesn't matter what they have to say.
Right.
We're going to disagree. We're going to have a bad time. We're going to end up leaving them a bad review. And that person may not have actually even earned that bad review whenever they got it.
More importantly than that, the dog isn't going to progress. Right. The relationship between that person and that dog is not going to get better.
Right.
And that is ultimately what both of us are really, and we've talked about this in depth, right? Yeah. And it's part of both of our business plans and everything.
Mm-hmm.
I want to help people. I want to help dogs live a better life with their humans.
Yeah.
That's the ultimate goal. And if you don't find that right person, it's just not going to happen.
Yeah. One of the early taglines for my company, man, I really like this. Nobody got it but me. Right. And so right. It was recapturing ancient relationships.
Oh,
that thing that brought the wolves into the firelight for the first time, right? That thing that said, hey man, you follow me around the prairies because we get you. You know what I mean? Like that. Be a team. I think of Dances of Wolves, right? Well, great movie, right? Because Two Socks, right? Like that dude earned that guy's trust, right? Mm-hmm. I think of that kind of a relationship whenever I think this way, right? And so like and like a lot of my clients didn't get it. They're like, what's an ancient relationship, bud? And I'm like, are you kidding me?
I love talking to people about that. And you have so much when you is from our perspective, right?
Right.
We have so much that we want to give our clients that sometimes I speed through certain things like the evolution of dogs, right?
Yeah.
Dogs have been evolving next to us for
long time.
What want to say 15,000 years, 25,000 years?
So recent discovery puts that around 35,000 years, which is nuts. Yeah.
Crazy. And so their psychology isn't the same as ours, but it mirrors ours, right? They're evolving alongside of us. And so their psychology is evolving next to us, meaning their thought processes are evolving next to ours.
So it's about time to wrap up, right? Let me ask you this question. If you had 3 things that you could tell your best friend who lived in a different country, even, right? Like they just lived so far apart from you, they couldn't access your services.
Military. That's
right?
It's easy to think
right?
about. Yeah.
But like, if you could tell somebody 3 things when they're looking for a dog trainer, hey, these are the 3 things that I really want to hone in on to make sure that you find the dog trainer for you. What are those 3 things, Chris?
Know what you want out of your dog.
Goal setting.
Yeah. Be honest with your expectations. And what I mean by that, and this is the most important one, actually.
Say it.
Be honest with your expectations with yourself.
Ooh.
Right? Don't go out and get a Malinois and be like, oh, this is going to make me exercise. No, it's not.
No, it's
going to aggravate you.
Yeah.
Be honest with your expectations. Yes, it will. If you enjoy watching TV when you get home from work and not going for a walk, that's fine.
Get a bulldog.
Don't get a Malinois or a Doberman.
And not a French bulldog. Get a bulldog.
And third, I think talking to 3 trainers, I think doing your homework is a good one.
Doing your homework solid.
Do your homework, man. Don't rely on the first person. I have no problem. Me as a business owner, I don't do evaluations of dogs, right? I don't think they're worthwhile. It takes me about 3 days to really get to know a dog. But that doesn't mean that you can't have multiple conversations with someone.
Absolutely.
And say, I talked to Evan last week and he said this. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah.
Let's have that conversation.
Yeah, let's have that conversation. Let's engage that conversation as a group.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's solid. I think for me, my 3 sit like this, right? Like I want to find somebody, if I'm hiring a dog trainer, right, that's interested in my goals, to your point, right? I want to find somebody who's like really inquisitive, asks a lot of questions, delves deeply into my life, into my routine, into my expectations, right, for training, right? I want to delve deeply into those concepts, like right off the rip, and then I want to find somebody who has proof of work or education, right? Take this for what it is. I know many. I am not here to downplay lack of certification. I know so many, you included, fantastic, worthwhile, worth the money, worth twice the money dog trainers that we can actually pull, worth twice the money, because what you're doing is changing lives, right? When you are a client of a dog train, like when you're a dog training client and you come into the system, right? You have problems that are hindering your life. I change that for the low cost of, right? And so like finding somebody that I can trust to change my life, like picking a life coach, right? Finding somebody who I trust with my daily routine. I need to find somebody trustworthy. That's my number 2, right?
I have something to say to that, but keep going.
Yep.
I don't want to forget about it.
And number 3, right, for me is like really looking at, right, and analyzing what tools they're using.
Yes.
Right? Because for me, tools are really important because there's a lot of really excellent marketing that goes into tools. One of the most aversive tools in the market, in my mind, has great marketing, right? And is widely used and looks like, right? Hey, look, this is really easy, right? And it's anything but from the dog's perspective, right?
Chiz.
And so, no, I won't name it, but hear me out, right?
You'll tell me after?
Yeah, I'll tell you after. But like, when we lead dogs around like horses, we're probably effing it up, right?
I have an idea.
Yeah, I bet you do. And those folks that are listening to us, if they're a little initiated, they're going to know exactly the ease with which I'm talking, right? But I don't want to get sued.
Yeah.
So, but the reality is that when we look at some of these ideas, right, like that's the idea is I want to find somebody who knows the tools, isn't willing to just hand me willy-nilly something that I could embed in my dog's neck if I don't know what I'm doing. I could cause real damage to my dog if I'm not sure, right? If I leave it on too long, like some e-collars, if you leave them on too long, they'll actually wear holes in your dog's neck, right?
Burn.
Right. And they'll burn them, right? So like those are my top three, you know? And so like whenever I look at this, right, like the idea is, you know, take it for what it is, guys listening, guys at home, guys that are joining us today on YouTube, right? Like,
or girls.
Yep. Guys is like a ubiquity term, man. Help me out, man. Look, anyway, the point is, right? Like, Chris, you're going to get me, dude. Anyway, but the point is, right, is I want to make sure, right? I want to make sure that like I am aligned in every way that I could possibly be aligned, and that I believe that the person that I'm asking to help me can truly help me.
Agreed. And that leads me right to what I wanted to say.
Yeah.
There is a reason my business name is Canine Coaching.
Let's go.
Right. I didn't necessarily intend this, but it played out beautifully.
Sure.
There are issues in individuals' lives that we deal with on a daily basis, on a weekly basis, that dogs can help with.
Yeah.
Anxiety, depression, childhood trauma.
Absolutely.
You name it. I say that one of my favorite quotes is when the student is ready, the master will appear.
Oh, come on.
Right?
Man.
You know exactly where I'm going.
Let's go.
Sydney Michael was my teacher.
Sure.
My professional dog, my dog that we talked about last time. We were sitting here, right? Ted's dog that just sat.
Yep.
He was my teacher.
Yep.
Sydney
Michael, for those of you who are listening, right? Sydney Michael is a dog.
Yes.
Right? That taught Chris everything that he really pivots on in dogs. Is that fair?
Fair. Yes. Yeah. The military training is one thing. Everything that Sydney Michael taught me is.
He found your heart.
He did.
Yeah.
He helped me find it.
All right, go on.
I can think of right off the top of my head, 15 clients that I have dealt with in the last couple of years that I know for a fact, because they have told me that the work that I did with their dog helped their life in a way that could not have been done without that training.
Absolutely.
So when we talk about this topic, this is our first major topic. This is important stuff, right? This is not like, I need my dog not to piss on the floor anymore. Sure. I also need to not be stressed. Right. I also need someone there that can help me when no one else can.
Somebody
I need a teammate. I need a partner. And that's what a dog can be.
Absolutely.
Right. And
often is.
Yeah. Dogs have so much to teach us.
Yeah.
If we can just slow down and listen.
Yep.
And if you have a dog trainer, or if you're looking at a dog trainer, that not that they have to agree with what I just said, but if they don't understand that this service that they are offering is offered to you and your dog, then you may want to look somewhere else.
Absolutely. Final thoughts?
I like this a whole lot.
Me too, man. I've had a great time today. Hey, listen, guys, thank you for joining us today on Whiskey and Wolves. You know, if you've had a great time with us, I invite you back to like, subscribe, and follow. Make sure that you come and hang out with Chris and I on a regular basis. Again, we're here to debunk the bunk in dog training, right? So like getting in there, digging in, understanding modern dog training concepts, and really giving you guys the insider look as to the way that dog training should really go today. Thanks for joining us. Chris, anything to say to the folks at home?
One thing I would like to say, if you have topics, send them our way.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right?
Put them in the comments. If you guys got questions, qualms, concerns, you want to tell me about how I'm stupid, put it in the comments, man. I probably won't read it, but I'll be here for it. All right.
I'll read it. I'll tell you.
I know. You never let me let it down. But anyway, guys, again, Whiskey and Wolves, check us out regularly everywhere you can find podcasts and here on YouTube. Have a great day.
Check out 7-3 Distillery.
And check out 7-3 Distillery. Cheers.